Hello and welcome to Organic Edible Garden. Today we're going to harvest the last of the summer tomatoes and show you how to save their seeds. And also we're going to show you how to prune your plum trees, which as an organic gardener it's best to do in the late summer rather than the winter because there's less chance of them getting a disease. You might wonder why we even bother saving our own tomato seeds. But most seeds for tomatoes and other vegetables generally comes from Europe, and they're not adapted to our conditions, especially people who live in the warmer north. So by saving your own seeds, every year your tomato plants get stronger and stronger. And with these tomato plants, you can give it to your neighbours and your friends and you'll keep another strain going. Saving your tomato seeds is done a little bit differently than other types of vegetables. Because they can carry things like blight and other types of diseases, we actually ferment them. And by fermenting them, it'll separate the good seeds from the bad. The first thing we do is we pick our best and ripest tomatoes. We slice them open and we scrape as many seeds as we can into a glass jar. You find some tomatoes have a lot of seeds, especially your cherry tomatoes, but your big beefsteaks like this are more flesh than seeds. With these two tomatoes, we've probably got about 100 seeds in here. With the fermentation process, we'll probably lose about 20% of that and we'll end up with about 80 seeds, which is enough for any home gardener. To that, we're going to add just a little bit of water. If you're using tomatoes which have got more seeds and a dryer, you'll just have to add a little bit more water. It is important never to put the lid back on the jar. It does give off a gas, so we're going to put a bit of tin foil over the top, so if there is gas there, it can escape. By leaving it just in a warm spot for a couple of days, it will start to ferment. Here's a jar of tomato seeds that we've been fermenting for about 4 days now, and it's got a good layer of fermented matter on the surface. What we need to do is get a spoon and scrape that material and throw it away. The fermentation coat all the seeds in a protective covering and it will destroy things like your blight and other diseases. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to pour the rest of the liquid into a sieve. And then we're going to rinse it through. The next thing we want to do is get some kitchen paper. 1 sheet's more than enough. And then we'll spread some of the seeds onto the paper. I try to spread the seeds in lines, but you can spread it all over the paper. The reason I do it in lines is the following year I can put the whole sheet of paper into a seed tray and it'll germinate in those lines. What we'll do now is we'll dry this bit of paper for up to a week out of the full sun. And these seeds here have been drying for about 5 days. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to write the date and what it is on the piece of paper. Then what we can do, once it's properly dry, we can fold it up and we can stick it in a Ziploc bag. Again, we can write what it is and the date on the bag. And then we can put the bag in the fridge, and these tomato seeds will keep for at least 5 years. We like to prune our fruit trees as soon as they finish fruiting, and we prune them for 3 main reasons. First, to get rid of the lower branches like that, so it's easier to mow around. Second, we take a lot of the inside branches off so there's enough air movement to flow through the tree. And thirdly, we prune for height. Now when pruning a plum tree, it's best to prune it every year for the first 3 years. After that, when it matures, you can prune it every 2nd or 3rd year. If you've got a few trees to prune, it's worthwhile investing in some good quality pruning equipment. Here we've got a big set of loppers, a smaller set, some secateurs and a pruning saw. And of course, having some meths on hand so you can sterilise all the equipment between the trees. This is a 4-year-old plum tree, and I didn't prune it last year. It looks a bit daunting, but just remember when you're pruning, it's always going to grow back. Because it's a large tree, I'm going to start with the biggest loppers. I'm going to start at the bottom and chop any branches that aren't necessary. I'm just trying to clean out the tree from any of these internal branches. And even some of the taller branches, if they're growing in, I'm taking them off. We want to keep a lot of these internal smaller branches in. They've got the fruiting spurs for the following year. But water shoots like this that go off them, they've got to come out. I'm just going to use my small secateurs to clean up the rest of the tree. I'm cutting off a lot of the green leafy growth. I want all the energy to go back into the tree so it'll produce fruiting spurs on the branches that are already there. We're chopping off quite a bit of the new growth as well. We've got quite a few branches here that will produce fruit the following seasons, and I don't want to overcrowd it. I prefer fewer, larger fruit than just lots of little fruit. Keeping a tree about this height is really good. It's easy to pick because any of the plums that are at the top of the tree generally go to the birds anyway. Time to get the top branches now. Now we've opened up the tree, there's a lot of air and sunlight that can go in. This is good when you're growing organically because it prevents diseases and it'll ripen the fruit from the outside in. The other thing is we've got rid of most of the spindly stuff where all the energy is going to for growth. All the energy will now go into producing the plums on the 5 main leaders that we've produced. And because we've made these 5 main branches really strong, even when they're laden with fruit, they're not going to droop to the ground.